Welcome to year two's offseason of the Raiders franchise, and as we kick things off with some retirements here, we have some huge names. We have Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Keenan Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson all retiring, and there's some Hall of Famers within that group of names, and that is going to be some really big shakeups in the NFL, as despite the Eagles winning a Super Bowl, they lose two of their best players. But let's get into some Raider business as the departures are here for our Las Vegas Raiders. We kept the coaching staff intact, as I don't really think there was any changes to be made. But let's start on the left side. We let some people walk. We have Trayvon Mullen. We decided to not bring him back, as well as our starting center, Andre James and Marcus Peters. Those were three full-time, 1,000-plus snap starters for us that we are letting completely walk, and we let some of those interior defensive linemen that we rotated in, Marcus Epps, CJ Ham, and then a lot of backups including PJ Walker, Jerry Tillery, Damian Harris. We decided to keep only three players, and that would be Bilal Nichols, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Jonnu Smith. I liked what Jonnu Smith was able to do as a backup tight end for us. I think he had some nice athleticism. Joseph Day and Bilal Nichols were the two best of the interior defensive linemen, I felt like, and I would still like to keep them as rotational guys, so held them on for another year and see if I can try to get some guys on the team that will take some snaps away from him, because we do not want Bilal Nichols and Sebastian Joseph Day to lead the snaps for interior defensive linemen. They are much better as rotational backup guys. And we made two nice trades. We tried to trade Tucker away when we drafted Kalen Shanny, and he kind of broke out as a rookie. It really rendered Trey Tucker pretty irrelevant, and trying to add to our interior defensive line, we just swapped Trey Tucker for Tim Settle. Just, a pretty minor player swap. Settle's going to be another rotational defensive lineman. But the bigger trade, I guess I should say, Jakobi Meyers has been dealt. I think Jakobi Meyers really struggled throughout the season, and I wasn't a fan of the contract he was given when we took over the Raiders. I wasn't a big Jakobi Meyers guy, but we, honored the first 2 years of the contract, and we really tried to make him work as our slot receiver. It just didn't. He was okay, but a lot of crucial drops, had some issues, some miscommunications. He's not really a part of the future plans. He's going to go to Houston for a 4th and a 7th round pick. I think we got decent value there. And for a Texans team that was really looking to add some more weapons, it was nice for them to pick up a guy like Jakobi Meyers who can help CJ Stroud out. So a lot of people walking, not a lot of guys retained. We got some money to play with, but let's take a look at what free agency looked like for the rest of the NFL. And we have two huge moves. We already seen Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers retire, shaking up the quarterback market. But let's shake it up a little bit more. Tua jumping from the AFC East. He's staying in there. He's jumping from Miami to New England. And that is a stunner of a move, but the Dolphins were not willing to pay Tua the crazy contract that he wanted, feeling like maybe he was a bit more of a product of the system, maybe, or they just feel like they can go in another direction and go cheaper at the quarterback position. But Tua now jumps to New England. Mac Jones is done, and the Dolphins are without a quarterback, and we have the Buccaneers, who notably passed up on a quarterback last year in the draft. They passed up on Byron Rohit, took Trey Dutch, and they have another top pick this year, and they're going to not take a quarterback. They're going to go and sign Jared Goff for a 3-year deal worth over $100 million. The Patriots, though, as we circle back to them, did not stop at Tua. They go and snag DeForest Buckner from the Colts and Josh Sweat from the Eagles. And the Patriots, under new management, no more Bill Belichick, no more, no more the Patriot way. This is a new Patriot era, and they are starting it off with a bang. And another team that made some big splashes is the Panthers. They bring back Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore played a half of a season for them in a trade, but now they're going to get Stephon Gilmore for a full season. They're pairing him with Charvarius Ward and David Njoku. So they signed Stephon Gilmore and Charvarius Ward because J.C. Horn walked in free agency. They are filling the void, though. and David Njoku on a 4-year, $41 million contract. Elsewhere, we see Wyatt Teller going to the Lions, and as if that Lions offensive line wasn't good enough with Penei Sewell and crew, they go and get Wyatt Teller, one of the better guards in the league. Zadarius Smith is heading to Jacksonville to pair up with Orlando Skies, which could be pretty fun. Jerry Jeudy is going to go to New York on a fairly big contract. $56 million for Jerry Jeudy is a bit more than I think I'd be willing to pay for him, but the Giants clearly like what they see in him. Tyron Smith will be going in our division as the Broncos lost Garrett Bowles to free agency. They go and replace him with a Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith and Joel Bitonio. They use some of that Aaron Rodgers money to bring in Joel Bitonio to help the offensive line. Kind of a little late to help that offensive line, which was one of the worst in the league after Aaron Rodgers goes. But maybe the Jets have a plan at quarterback in the coming years. We'll see, as now that is the biggest signings in the NFL free agency. Now let's go specifically to our Raiders because we have some really fun signings for the Raiders. And not only do we got some signings, but we have a big time trade pulled off. We will get into the signings in just a second, but the Panthers have been moving and shaking around their secondary quite a bit with Charvarius Ward and Stephon Gilmore. They seem to be moving in a completely different direction, and we pounced on the opportunity. Dylan Parham, a 4th and 6th round pick, will be heading to Carolina in exchange for safety Jeremy Chinn. And Jeremy Chinn is exactly what we have wanted at the safety position opposite of Gabe Marietta. Moehrig was certainly just a player for us. I never feel like I called Moehrig's name once throughout the entirety of the season. It was pretty odd considering he never did anything horrendous, but he never did anything big. He never made an impact. He never did anything. And I didn't want to bring back just a guy. I wanted to go out there and bring in someone who can make a difference, and Jeremy Chinn provides us some versatility. He can go and play some nickel corner, he can play strong safety, he can play in the box, he can play in a lot of different areas, and we really want that versatility to be able to put a real weapon in Todd Bowles' hands. And I think for a 4th, a 6th, and Dylan Parham, it's a nice price to pay. I am very confident that we are going to work on an extension for Jeremy Chinn probably within the next year. I would love to keep him in Las Vegas, and it is a massive pickup. So your safeties going into next year will be Gabe Marietta and Jeremy Chinn. And now let's get into the rest of our acquisitions. So I wanted to kind of split this up a little bit. We have 3 levels. We signed 9 players in free agency, and I want to kind of build up to the biggest stuff here. So our bottom 3 signings, pretty quickly, we will go over Taylor Heineke. We signed PJ Walker last year to be a backup quarterback. Taylor Heineke will come in this year to go alongside Aiden O'Connell. So those will be our 3 quarterbacks going in the next season. We signed Denzel Perriman, a former Raider, and Denzel Perriman is a great run-stopping linebacker still at his old age. He's complete liability in coverage, but when we ever need some real run-stopping, Denzel Perriman can maybe step onto the field for us. And our safety acquisitions were not done at Jeremy Chinn, as we also bring in Jimmy Ward. So we have a real plan to bulk up this secondary, and Jimmy Ward, who maybe not as good as he was in San Francisco, still had decent years in Houston. We wanted to bring him in to be our 3rd safety. Marcus Epps still ended up playing about 400 plus downs for us, so Jimmy Ward is going to see playing time, and we can have some real situations where we run Marietta and Jimmy Ward and maybe play Chinn up close at linebacker in the box. So we're going to have some real options at the safety position now. Now let's take a little step up to the 2nd level acquisitions, and I think one name really stands out, and I want to cover him first. That is future potential Hall of Fame wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. And I know we might be sitting here thinking, DeAndre Hopkins at about 33 years old, how much does he really have? Well, I will tell you that if you've seen the recap of the season that ended, DeAndre Hopkins still did make the Pro Bowl, and he had 1,100 yards at wide receiver, and we don't need him to come in and be what he was in Houston and be what he was in Arizona. We don't need that. We just need a guy who can go in, have some really big third down catches, be a go-to guy. We don't need all-pro DeAndre Hopkins. We don't even really need Pro Bowl DeAndre Hopkins. We just need good DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, we are planning on running Kalen Shanny on the outside as of right now. And I'd like to see Jaden Sherreau step into the slot this year, take Jacoby Myers' role, because we've seen Sherreau was among the league leaders in yards after catch and yards after catch average. He's really good with the ball in his hand, so I want to see him in the slot. We're going to have Shanny to take the top off the defense. DeAndre Hopkins should be our more bigger body. Go up and get it. Red zone, third down receiver. It's a big acquisition for us because I really felt like we didn't have a solidified number one. Sherreau and Shanny are great, and I love what they did as rookies, but they are not, at least at this point in their career, they're not number ones. DeAndre Hopkins is a certified number one, and we finally have a receiver we can go to in key situations. As we look at the other two, we have Ted Karras to come in and be our starting center this year. It is a slight upgrade from Andre James. I wasn't blown away by James in his time with the Raiders. He was fine, an adequate starter. Karras will also be a pretty adequate starter. It's not the long-term fix, but it's a slight upgrade. And I really want to talk about now Osa Odigizua from Dallas coming over to Las Vegas. Big fan of Odigizua and what he was able to do in Dallas. Now he has a lot of guys in Dallas that help him out. When you have Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, along with a bunch of other guys to rotate in the interior of the defensive line, like Mozzie Smith, it's a lot easier to have a job that makes you look good. And I think he's looked pretty good in Dallas in his time there. But I want to see what he can do here in Las Vegas, where the rotation is a bit weaker, and we're going to be asking him to do a bit more, take on a bit more responsibility, but he still does have an elite edge rusher to help him out, that being Max Crosby. We'll see what Tyree Wilson can do in year 3 with a bit more, potential time to rush the passer and another year of development. But he was not the only guy we brought in on the interior of the defensive line, because we still have 3 more guys left to see. And as the top line is revealed, we have some pretty good names here. Let me start left to right. I brought up Garrett Bowles. The Broncos lost him in free agency. They upgrade to Tyron Smith, but we jumped on the opportunity to get Garrett Bowles, steal him from our division rival, and Garrett Bowles will be coming in to play right tackle this year, opposite of Colton Miller. Now, it really helps out our tackle situation to have a guy like him, because Leo Wilcox was our starter at right tackle as we drafted him in the 3rd round. He's more so a guard who can play tackle. We're going to be kicking Leo into guard, his natural position, which is going to be pretty big for his development. So our offensive line has seen 2 upgrades, and Leo Wilcox playing now his natural position. I think that's going to help us out big time. As we go to the middle, I said we got Odigizua with some help in the interior defensive line, and that is with Eric Armstead. Now, Armstead is not quite the elite or Pro Bowl guy that he might have flashed in San Francisco. He's a bit older, a bit cheaper, $11 million a year. He's not going to be a game changer, but he's going to be way better than anything we have had in a while in the interior. And if you said that your interior goes from Bilal Nichols and Sebastian Joseph Day to Osa Odigizua and Eric Armstead, I think you'd be pretty happy with that upgrade. That is a pretty substantial upgrade. And we are going to see what a defensive line of Tyree Wilson, Max Crosby, Odigizua, Eric Armstead. We acquired Tim Settle for Trey Tucker, and then obviously Joseph Day and Bilal Nichols. We got some depth. We have some better, higher-end players. I think the pass rush should be a bit better, and hopefully the run defense is better as well. But the run defense, while it was an issue for us, it wasn't our biggest issue. Our biggest issue was pass defense, where we had among the worst passing defenses you could imagine. And as you see, what our priorities, where they lie, getting Jimmy Ward, getting Jeremy Chin, and now we bring in our big ticket free agent signing, J.C. Horn from the Panthers. I said the Panthers desperately were trying to replace him. Getting Charvarius Ward and Stephon Gilmore certainly help, but neither are the player right now that J.C. Horn is, who is a guy who consistently has been a regarded top 10 corner potentially, and one of those flying under the radar players. When you're playing in Carolina with how bad they've been, you don't really pay attention to how good Horn's been throughout the course of his career. Got banged up as a rookie, and he came out in the same class as Surtain. While Surtain is one of the top 2 corners in the league, Horn's been pretty good in his own right, and I think it's time that people get to really see that. And now, with Horn on the outside as our solidified number 1 corner, going from Marcus Peters to J.C. Horn is a humongous upgrade. And one of the reasons we were able to bring him in is we got his teammate from Carolina, Jeremy Chinn. We bring both of them from Carolina to Las Vegas to make up a portion of our secondary. And as of right now, we have our 3 safeties that I spoke about earlier. Horn as our cornerback 1, and we have Southward as of right now is still cornerback 2, with Nate Hobbs among the best nickel corners in the league, staying in his nickel position. I think that the pass defense should be so much improved this year. We got better on the interior, and we got better significantly in the secondary. So I am super excited to see what this defense can do, is because I feel like we have some real players on defense now, and some real guys who can make an impact. And I just hope we can really fix the tight end situation as well. As you can see from games against Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Kansas City, we're bad against tight ends, and that's another reason why we brought Jeremy Chinn in to help cover those tight ends. So I hope all those moves excite you. Let me know what you think of those moves and, the prices that we paid for them. But we are not done upgrading this team. We made trades, we made free agent signings, but we still got a draft to get into. So how about we step foot into the draft room as we have a fun draft upcoming with a lot of big name players. There is a lot of excitement for this draft for me, and I'd hope for you too, with a lot of these players that we got to learn about throughout the course of the season. I want to do the draft a bit differently this year. Last year, the offseason was quite long. It was an hour, 10 minutes, and I talked in depth about a lot of different players, and I'm still going to be talking in depth about players, but I want to do a bit more show, not tell, when it comes to these guys. So some of the maybe less notable players or players who are not draft stories, rather than just talk on and on about them, I'm going to more so show you them. And, I'm still going to be going in depth, but I want to keep it a little bit shorter, do some more showing, not telling. So let's get into the draft, where the Titans hold the number 1 pick and our Raiders hold the number 11 pick. Let's get things started. With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Raleigh Cordula, wide receiver, USC. In my opinion, what has to be one of the greatest wide receiver prospects the league has ever seen. It is no surprise that at the number 1 pick, it is the first time we have seen a receiver go this high in decades, and Raleigh Cordula is the guy for the job, as he is about as sure as it gets at the wide receiver position. We have covered the USC story in length this year, but to quickly summarize, as a sophomore, Cordula struggled at USC, but through no fault of his own, his quarterback situation was atrocious, and he was having a hard time. He was frustrated. USC was suffering because of it. In this past off season, he goes out and basically recruits and lobbies so hard for any quarterback to come to USC and try to win a championship. He gets the top guy, and he gets Lance Bowen to join him at USC. The two go on to have a magical year and win the national championship, and Raleigh Cordula wins the Heisman Trophy. He caught 159 balls for almost 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns. Unbelievable numbers. When I was doing my comps for this year's draft, Raleigh Cordula reminded me a lot of Julio Jones, and he is in that mold of a receiver who can just dominate a game. And Julio, one of the, argue where you want to put him, I'd say 10 greatest receivers of all time. And I think that when it's all said and done, we could be looking at Raleigh Cordula the same. With the second pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Lance Bowen, quarterback, USC. USC dominated the headlines of the college football season, won the national championship, and now they're dominating draft day as picks 1 and 2 are the duo of Bowen and Cordula. Sadly, they will not be playing together in the NFL, but the Jordan Love experiment seems to be over in Green Bay as they are getting themselves a gunslinging, strong-arm quarterback, and they are hoping that they have the next in their line of legendary quarterbacks going from Favre to Rodgers. A little bit of Jordan Love, it didn't work out. Now they're going right to Lance Bowen with the number 2 overall pick. They're probably saying to themselves, when is Green Bay ever going to get the number 2 overall pick again? They are a team that does not usually pick that high. They want to send it all in on Lance Bowen, who threw for 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns, runner-up in Heisman, only to his teammate, and of course, national champion. And we'll see what Lance Bowen can do in Green Bay. With the third pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Harry Scott III, cornerback, Penn State. And we do not have another USC player coming off the board, but we're sure to see more go in the first round, as the Buccaneers, who went all in on Jared Goff to be their quarterback, went Trey Dutch number 1 last year. They still had a top pick this year, going at number 3. They go cornerback Harry Scott, who was kind of battling for the number 1 corner spot with Ellis Travis Jr. from UCLA. We are sure to see him very soon. But the Buccaneers were the team in biggest need of a cornerback, and we'll see what the thought process was between him and Travis. I don't think you could really go wrong. Scott is the more mouthy, arrogant, flamboyant, physical corner who is going to get in your face and try to make a play on the football. He has got some ejections to his name and has gotten in some fights, but I mean, you kind of have to have that mentality at cornerback. He is definitely a guy who does not get rattled and shaken in a way where his confidence is gone. He has confidence 24/7. Sometimes it can get the better of him, but he has the elite mentality and the elite skills to be a great corner. He helped lead another top defense for Penn State, and we'll see if he can do the same with Trey Dutch in Tampa Bay. With the fourth pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select Gale Dell, tackle, Texas A&M. And Washington, I am liking the approach of this rebuild here in Washington. Last year, they go and get their quarterback in Byron Rohit, and this year, they get the guy to block him for the next 10 years, they hope, as they get their franchise left tackle, get their franchise quarterback, and in Washington, things seem to be turning upwards for them. They did not have a great year last year after selecting Rohit. I said that they would be, a potential team to look out for early on. They suffered some injuries, had some difficulties. Things didn't work out the way they hoped, but Rohit showed plenty of flashes, looked pretty good, and with that abysmal offensive line in Washington, it was not easy to look good. He managed to do it, and now they go and spend their top pick on a tackle to help him out. I think things are looking good for Washington going forward. We'll see what Byron Rohit can do with some time in the pocket now. With the fifth pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Angelo Hayden Jr., wide receiver, UCLA. And the top UCLA player comes off the board. In just about any other year, Angelo Hayden is a consensus number 1 wide receiver. He just happened to be in the same class as Raleigh Cordula, and that's unfortunate for him. But it does not hurt his draft stock, as he is still the 5th overall pick. He possesses game-changing speed and deep threat ability. When he gets over the top on a defense, it is over for them. And not only that, he is able to still maintain the ability to not just be a deep threat. A lot of times with these speedsters, what really separates them is, can they do something other than be a deep threat? He can get the ball in his hands, he can make some plays, he can make some acrobatic catches, he can do literally anything you need him to do. And I know it was high praise when we went over him during the season, but I see some real Tyreek Hill flashes, not just with his speed. I don't know if he's quite as fast as Tyreek Hill, because Tyreek Hill is the fastest man in the league, it seems like, but he possesses that kind of speed with the ability to do a little bit of everything. So Angelo Hayden is going to be a massive piece of this new era here in Detroit, where they are moving on from Jared Goff. I don't know what they're going to be doing at quarterback, but we know that with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot and Angelo Hayden going deep up top, and they also brought in Mike Williams at last year's free agency, it's a pretty dangerous receiving core. With the 6th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Sean Percival, edge rusher, USC. And if I'm being honest, this one really surprises me. The Saints, I think this is a bit of a reach from the Saints. Percival was a player who I compared to Clay Matthews as a guy who can do a little bit of everything. He can stop the run a bit, he can get to the quarterback, he can make some big swats down at the line, get to the ball, he can do a little bit of everything, but I don't see him being elite at anything. Though the Saints do have a history in the recent years of kind of reaching on some guys that they really like, especially at the edge rusher position with guys like Marcus Davenport. They have tried to go all in and find a great edge rusher. It has not worked out. They are once again trying here at 6. Now, I don't know if Percival is the guy for the job. I think he's a really nice player and more than worthy of being a first-round pick, but I think they're going to be asking him to do a little bit too much. He's a really good player, but he cannot be the only guy. He cannot be the dominant number one edge. I don't think he's that kind of guy. So it's an interesting pick. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but it's another USC player coming off the board, and a lot higher than I thought they'd be coming off the board. With the 7th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Rashad Peebles, guard, Texas. And Texas is going to be a pretty popular team for next year when we get to draft coverage. Texas has a lot of things going for them. And one of the things that they've always had, seemingly, is this offensive line. We've seen AJ Perkins go last year pretty high, and now Rashad Peebles is going just as high this year. Now, I think what's interesting here is Peebles is going around the same time as Perkins did, but I think Peebles isn't quite the prospect that Perkins was, though I do think Peebles is really nice, and he's going to be pretty fun when you pair him with Quentin Nelson, if Quentin Nelson can still be everything that we think he is. And when you have him, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith, I think you can have a really nice offensive line and much needed protection for Anthony Richardson, though Peebles is more of a run blocker when it comes to how dominant he can be. His dominance really does come in that run-first Texas offense, where he is able to bulldoze people at the line. He was one of the strongest players at the Combine and is able to just grip onto guys and not let go. So that's going to help Jonathan Taylor out a good bit too. With the 8th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Timothy Steele, defensive tackle, TCU. And I am a big fan of Timothy Steele. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to be at us at number 11. He was a guy I was eyeing quite a bit for, obviously, trying to bolster this defensive line. Steele possesses a lot of athletic traits that you love to see for a 300-pounder. He was pretty fast at the Combine, 4,300-pounder, while still maintaining really nice strength. He's able to mix his power with still pretty great finesse moves. I mean, you would expect a guy at 300 pounds to just be a bulldozer and just power through, but no, he is really nimble, really athletic, really agile, and can attack the ball carrier very well while still maintaining the ability to get pressure on the quarterback. He can do it all in the interior, and for a 300-pounder, I have to really hammer that in. For a 300-pounder, he can chase you down, and he could spin move, get around you. I mean, they were even lining him up at edge a little bit at TCU just for the fun of it, and he was still dominating some of the tackles down there. Now, I don't think he's going to be able to dominate at the edge position in the NFL, but it's just to show that he has some real versatility to him and can really make a big impact on the game. I think the Texans got themselves a really good player. With the 9th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Tyler Dunbar, guard, Ohio State. And I am pretty big on this pick for the Patriots, who over the past few years have really struggled, not just on offense, but their offensive line has been really abysmal. And Mac Jones has obviously not been good, but he has not been able to look good. Now you get Tua in the building, you draft him a guard, and I think the Patriots are heading in an upward direction for the first time in a while. I think there's some real excitement down there in New England. They picked 9th overall. They were showing signs of improvement a little bit. You get Tua, you get your quarterback. Now you got a guy to protect him. And Tyler Dunbar is just the guy that they needed in that interior of the offensive line. Is pretty balanced as a pass and run blocker while still having great strength. And I don't really have much else to say other than this is a really solid, nice pick, a nice player, and obviously the best offensive lineman at Ohio State is probably going to be a pretty good player. With the 10th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Matt Hoskins, wide receiver, Notre Dame. And this is a very interesting pick for the Seahawks, who I think have a lot of needs. And in recent years, I mean, they selected Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round not too long ago, have DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett's kind of on his way out and on the regression, but it really feels like the Seahawks are big on having 3 wide receivers that they can really trust and depend on. And with Geno Smith still at quarterback, I guess that they are moving forward with Geno and trying to develop another wide receiver. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of this pick, but Seahawks clearly see something that we don't with Matt Hoskins, who was a 1,000-yard receiver at Notre Dame, and we'll see if he can make a big impact alongside DK and Njigba. With the 11th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Ellis Travis Jr., cornerback, UCLA. And I cannot believe he was here at 11. Ellis Travis and Harry Scott were the number 1 and number 2 corner, and it was a really big debate between who was the one, and the Bucks felt that Harry Scott was, and that's not the issue. The issue is watching teams 4 through 10 not pick him. And I liken this to a situation that happened just a few years ago when Devon Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez were kind of debated between who was the best, and Witherspoon got taken pretty high, and you just watched Gonzalez get passed over pick after pick after pick, and you don't know why he made it that far, but you knew you're taking one of the best players in the draft, and he came into New England and immediately showed that he was one of the best players in that draft. And we had no intentions of taking a cornerback at 11. We assumed in our processing that Travis was going to be gone and Harry Scott was going to be gone, and we were looking elsewhere. But when we seen Ellis Travis on the board at 11, how could you not pick him? And Ellis Travis is going to be an incredible, incredible player. I mean, my comp for him was Patrick Peterson, and I am shocked by this one, and we were perfectly content rolling into next season with Jeff Southward as our number 2 corner on the outside, but now suddenly Jeff Southward is our number 4 corner. We are going to be going into next season with Gabe Marietta, Jeremy Chin, Jimmy Ward, Nate Hobbs, Jeff Southward, J.C. Horn, and Ellis Travis. Our secondary completely overhauled, and this is going to be a suddenly really fun secondary. And I cannot get over how exciting this pick is. And maybe it, softens the blow of the fact we didn't make the playoffs and we lost our final 3 games to close the season. The fact that we can come in here in a win-it-in situation, lose, and still get an elite player like Ellis Travis in the draft. I am so excited to have him. We went a lot more in-depth with the top 10 picks and our 11th pick, so from here on out, picks 12 through whatever, we are going to be just kind of showing you them, not doing the full announcement and everything, and just kind of giving you a short, little analysis of these players. So the Falcons go with pick number 12 and take edge rusher Perry Shepard. And to no surprise, the Falcons are still trying to find a good edge rusher to have on their team. And it's been years and years and years of them trying to figure it out at the edge rusher position. Maybe Perry Shepard is the guy who can finally end their misery when it comes to finding a good edge rusher. Pick 13, I'm actually a pretty big fan of this pick. They go Clemson cornerback J.R. James. And if you remember, the Cardinals last year spent a top pick on Arwell Gannady. Who was that? A Clemson cornerback. So while J.R. James is not some big draft story player, he's a ball hawk, he's a speedster, he's got a punt return touchdown in his career, and he's going to be teaming up with his Clemson teammate in now Arizona. So I think that's a really fun little duo that the Cardinals have going forward. And the Bills at 14 go with tackle from TCU Chase Garrison. And the Bills last year missing the playoffs, as that doesn't usually happen with Josh Allen at quarterback. But they are going to try to re-up that offensive line and give Allen a bit more time in the pocket, as he has not had the most help in Buffalo when it comes to his offensive line, and also his lack of run game for most of his career has really just been Stephon Diggs and recently Dalton Kincaid. But let's hope that the Bills can turn things around on offense and Allen doesn't have to play hero ball 24/7. And as we go to the Dolphins at pick 15, and we got an exciting one and an interesting one. The Dolphins go quarterback Darrell Parker, also out of TCU. So TCU goes back-to-back here at 14 and 15. But the Dolphins let Tua walk in free agency after a pretty down season. And now they're going into the draft, and rather than paying Tua, $40 million a year, they're going to go into the draft and take Darrell Parker, a Heisman candidate quarterback, and a guy who took TCU all the way to national title contention. And I can't say that this is a totally bad move. I mean, the fact that you're able to go and get a quarterback like Parker here at 15, I think that's a pretty good value, and they clearly see the ability to at least make him, a semblance of what Tua was. And I think this is a really good fit because Parker is really good, not just as an athlete, but he doesn't turn the ball over a crazy amount, has quick processing, a strong arm, and is good with the short passes. So I think that, for a team that likes to run its RPOs and its quick options and its passing, and now you're going to add a dynamic of a running threat potentially at quarterback, I think this is a really good fit for them. And they had a plan with letting Tua go, and I think this is a pretty interesting plan. We'll see if the Dolphins can go somewhere with Darrell Parker at the head of the offense. Pick 16 for the Chicago Bears, and they go a linebacker Austin Boston out of Alabama. And if I'm being so honest with you and completely transparent, if Ellis Travis was not on the board and he did not fall to number 11, I'm pretty confident in saying Austin Boston would have been a Raider at number 11, and that possibly would have been a slight reach for where he was projected, because this is even the high end of where he was projected to go. But Boston's a player I love a lot. I mean, he was without a doubt the best coverage linebacker on all of college football this past season, and his cover skills translate very well to the NFL. I think that he would have been an amazing fit on the Raiders, and he fills a desperate need of a coverage linebacker. But I'm happy with Ellis Travis, and the Bears are going to be very happy with Austin Boston, who's going to be so good. And we'll see if he can make us look a little foolish for passing up on him. But maybe Ellis Travis won't make that really much of a point at all if he becomes a great player. Texans on the clock at pick 17 go with another Clemson corner. That is Tim Wyrick And the Clemson trio of last year is now all in the NFL. Arwell Gannady goes at the top last year. They go with J.R. James, also the Cardinals. Wyrick will not also be going to Arizona. He goes to Houston. But Wyrick was a player we're very familiar with. I think he is an almost like one-to-one comp of Nate Hobbs in terms of just how he plays and how great he is as a nickel corner. And I think that's exactly what he'll be in the NFL. And maybe you question taking a nickel corner in the first round, but I mean, if you get a great one and he's going to be a long-standing player in this league, I mean, the only reason he wasn't drafted higher, it's not because of skill, it's just because he's 5'9", 177. But he's a really good player, really athletic, really agile, really instinctive, and obviously great in coverage. The Clemson trio, now all in the NFL, all first-round picks, so it's going to be fun seeing them all three in the league now and how their careers go and who's going to be the best between them. Pick 18 for the Steelers, they go wide receiver out of Iowa, Isaiah Hodgins. And Hodges, who comes off a 1,000-yard season at Iowa, not known for their offense, but he was able to thrive in that offense. And the Steelers, who, you know, Deontay Johnson's getting up there. Pickens was a hit as a second rounder a couple of years ago, but they're clearly looking for a guy who can complement him very well, and they hope Isaiah Hodgins can do just that. They still kind of lack the great quarterback, as they seem to be rolling with Kenny Pickett still, or whoever else they may bring in, but, you know, see if the receivers can still succeed in that offense. The Giants at pick 19. This is the first of 2 first-round picks. Last year, they made a trade with the 49ers, giving up their first-round pick and trading into this year's. So this is their original pick. We'll see them in a little bit with the Niners pick. They go with Raj Lucia at pick 19. And when I was talking about Austin Boston at pick 11 potentially being our move if we did not have Ellis Travis on the board, Raj Lucia was the other guy I was highly considering to bulk up the interior of the defensive line, and I'm a big believer in Raj Lucia. I talked also about Rashad Peebles being one of the strongest players at the Combine. Well, that is because Raj Lucia was the very strongest, and he was impressive at the Combine. And you don't often see guys that are close to 350 pounds get taken this high, because the risk of a nose tackle in the first round, more often than not, they don't hit. But I think that this one is going to be more on the Vita Vea levels of success, and he will hit. He's got a high motor. He can actually pass rush a little bit too. So he gets to the quarterback and he eats up space in the middle, and I think him next to Dexter Lawrence is going to be a nightmare scenario for anyone facing the Giants in the upcoming year and coming years, as Lawrence continues to be one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league, and we'll see if Lucia can develop alongside him, but it's going to be such a fun do-over with those two. At pick 20, and finally, Dexter Parker comes off the board. This is another surprise. I mean, edge rushers seem to not really be a big priority in this year's draft for a lot of teams, which is obviously surprising because of how important the edge rush position is. But when you looked at the most productive edge rusher this past season, it was Dexter Parker. And yet Sean Percival goes in front of him, goes all the way, you know, top 10 in the draft. And here Dexter Parker is falling to number 20. I can say that this is maybe the best value pick alongside our number 11 pick, but maybe I'm a little biased there. But this is about as good of a value pick as it gets as Dexter Parker. I do think his stats maybe don't reflect the player, as I don't think he's as dominant translating to the NFL level as his stats indicate. I don't think he's going to be some, you know, superstar off the bat who should have been a top 5 pick, but I can definitely say he's more than worthy of being a top 10 to 15 pick, and like I said, getting him at 20 is incredible value, and I think the Rams are going to be very, very happy to ride out whatever years they have left on Aaron Donald and having Dexter Parker on the edge alongside him. Pick 21 for the Jets, who just watched Aaron Rodgers retire, and with both the quarterbacks off the board and no real first-round guys available, they go at wide receiver DeMarco Ford. I cannot fault them for this because outside of Garrett Wilson, the receiving core has been bit of a struggle as the Allen Lazard contract has proven to not be a great one. They traded away Elijah Moore, and the Mecole Hardman thing didn't work out. I mean, he didn't even make it a full season, it feels like, and they needed another guy next to Garrett Wilson, and we'll see if DeMarco Ford can fill those shoes and be at least a nice complementary piece. And whoever the quarterback for the Jets may be going forward, they're going to be coming into a situation where you're having a top 10 wide receiver, arguably, in Garrett Wilson, and whatever DeMarco Ford becomes, it's a nice scenario for any quarterback on top of, having Breece Hall, of course. So I like what the Jets are doing here. They're building an offense around whatever quarterback they plan on getting. They're setting them up, and I think whatever quarterback steps in for Aaron Rodgers is going to succeed very well. The Chargers at pick 22 go with Stephon Wakefield, a run stopper out of West Virginia. They have not really proven to be successful with some of their recent picks in this area, most notably Jerry Tillery, but they're hoping that Wakefield can not really follow in the footsteps of D linemen in the past, maybe other than Joey Bosa, of course, as he is going to still be in the Chargers. Not so much Khalil Mack, who is long gone by now, so Wakefield's going to really have to step up as their number 2. Staying in our division with the Denver Broncos, they are going with edge rusher out of Michigan, Devry Nesbitt. And Nesbitt is another guy who's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle with some of these edge rushers. I think is another guy who maybe could have been a little bit higher of a pick. He was decently productive at Michigan, and I think is a nice fill of a need for them because, after losing Bradley Chubb to a trade, they also lost Von Miller and haven't really been able to replace his production since. The Randy Gregory deal did not work out, and they have not really been able to develop anyone else. So Devry Nesbitt is going to be someone who's going to be attacking Thomas DeShong in the upcoming season. As you can tell by the Panthers losing J.C. Horn, it's been probably the story in Carolina this offseason, as they have done everything they can to try to replace him. Now we have Charvarius Ward, Stephon Gilmore, and first-round pick Craig Moats out of Stanford, who are all going to be trying to replace him. And I think that the Panthers have really, embraced the idea of, instead of, putting all their assets money-wise into one guy, try to spread that money around, maybe take a bit of a downgrade at Charvarius Ward, use that money, put it into Stephon Gilmore, and then draft Craig Moats, who, Gilmore's not going to be around forever, so Moats eventually will step in as their number 2. So they're really trying to go for a full rebuild in the secondary here, and we'll see if this works out, or will J.C. Horn make them regret not paying him the money that he felt he was deserved. The Giants here at pick 25. This is the 49ers pick that they acquired last year, and this is a surprising one. They go at running back Xavier Calhoun out of Northern Illinois, the top back in this class. But for a team that has Saquon Barkley, I think this lets you know what they think about the future of Saquon Barkley, and that is that it's not long before he's going to be heading out the door. And, for a guy who has some injury troubles and is in his late 20s, I think it makes a lot of sense. But picking a first-round running back is obviously going to be something that's highly criticized, but I think, Xavier Calhoun is the guy you're going to pick if you're going to pick anyone. He helped put Northern Illinois on the map and helped them get to a BCS Bowl game, BCS Bowl victory, and Northern Illinois moving to the Big Ten next year, taking a huge step up in competition. And Xavier Calhoun is a lot of the reason why. So I think for a running back that ran for almost 2,000 yards and 20-plus touchdowns, I'm excited to see what he does in the NFL, and having to sit behind Saquon Barkley in his first year, he's going to learn a lot, and he's going to be eased into things. So it's going to be a good situation for him. Pick 26 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think this one makes a lot of sense. They went out there, they drafted Orlando Skies last year, who proved to be a pretty nice rookie. They went out and signed Zadarius Smith as a veteran to complement him, with Foyesade Oluokun in the middle, constantly up there in the league when it comes to tackles. I think what you really need in the back end is someone at cornerback who can, give these guys time on the edge to come flying around. And I think that Hoskins, one of the top corners available, it makes a lot of sense for them, and it fills a huge need, and we will be seeing the Jaguars next season, so let's see how this new and improved defense fares against us. And I'll tell you that at pick 27, we were not done with Kansas State cornerbacks, and Kansas State has back-to-back picks go in the first round at cornerback. It's a shame that Kansas State has had some NFL talent, 2 first-rounders back-to-back right here, and there's going to be some other people going for them, and they couldn't crack the top 15, really, and they didn't have a particularly amazing season, so disappointing for them, but I think the NFL is more than happy to take some of their great players. The Bengals, who finished as the 1 seed last year, they will be taking an edge rusher, Mitchell Riddle, out of Florida. And Riddle will pair with Trey Hendrickson to help give them even more edge rush, as the Bengals didn't really change their team up a whole lot, but you really don't have to. They were unfortunately knocked out of the playoffs, but you win like 14 games last year. You don't really have to change all that much. You still got Burrow, Chase, Higgins, and everyone will be back, so the Bengals are primed to make another run. I think you are starting to see one of the reasons why Ellis Travis may have fallen as far as he did, because there is a really, really great amount of depth in this cornerback class. You've already seen, a couple of them get taken in the 20s here, and here's another one on the Chiefs, but teams are going to be allowed to, dive into the second round or even third round and get some very quality players. So why take a player like Ellis Travis with a top 10 pick when you can go and take a lineman and then get a cornerback in the second round or whatever. So I think teams are looking at it like that. But Chandarius Hart will be heading to the Chiefs in our division. As we wrap up the final few picks of the first round, we see that the Cowboys once again go with their Notre Dame offensive lineman, that being Corey Emerson. So, the history they've had with some Notre Dame offensive linemen, namely Zach Martin, so I'm sure he'll be just fine. We go back to back on the offensive lineman as the Super Bowl runner-up. Baltimore Ravens go with Mike Hawkins out of Stanford, so they are getting a tackle opposite Ronnie Stanley to help maybe make a push for the Super Bowl this time, as they are trying not to be runner-ups this time around and actually trying to win the thing. How about we wrap things up with the defending champs in the first round, going with Oregon State running back Josh Kendricks, as the Eagles have a revolving door of running backs going from Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. They will be going with Josh Kendricks to maybe give him a bit more stability at the position, and with the retirements of Kelsey and Lane Johnson, they can't just rely on great blocking. They actually have to have a running back who can create, and Kendricks can do just that. And how about we stick with the Eagles as we advance to pick number 11 of the second round. We are making a trade down with the Eagles, who are jumping up 21 spots, but are paying a hefty price of a third and a fourth in next year's draft. So good value for the Raiders and the Eagles. Let's see who they were coming up to draft all along. And that would be Iowa State safety Joel Covington, as we have entered the Iowa State portion of this draft. And I told you Iowa State was going to have no great first-round high-end players, but they were going to dominate day 2, and we'll be getting to these players. But we start with Covington, a very rangy, deep coverage, middle of the field, center field type safety. I think it's a good pick in the second round, and I can see why you'd want to give up some assets to come up and get him. With the very next pick in the second round, the Falcons go and draft Troy Tolbert, the bulky 250-pound tank of a tight end who caught 900 yards and 11 touchdowns worth of balls. He's going to be a really fun player if, the Falcons actually decide to utilize their tight ends. I mean, he's very much in the Jonnu Smith mold, so I think it's a really, really good fit for him to use him opposite of Kyle Pitts. So I love the fit. Let's just hope they can actually use him, but seems like in recent years with Arthur Smith departing from Atlanta, they've actually learned how to use some of their playmakers, so I think he'll be just fine, and pairing him with Kyle Pitts is going to be really dangerous. And the final of the Iowa State trio, they go all within 4 picks of one another. The Bills go and take Kyle Bobo, And again, I really like this pick for the Bills. They went out, took a tackle in the first round. I said Josh Allen's kind of struggled with having, consistent running back on his team. Maybe Bobo can be that guy. He's also a nice pass catching back. So I think this helps out a lot for the Bills. And I think the Bills are really trying to focus on giving Josh Allen more weapons and more protection. I think it's a good strategy. So we made the trade down to 64, and with that late second round pick, the final in the second round, we take linebacker Stanley Camper out of Arkansas, and Camper is kind of what we were thinking of taking in the first round. Not quite Austin Boston level of a player, but he is one of the better coverage linebackers in this draft, and he gives us another option. I mean, it's not like Devin Bush's job is secure, and Divine Diablo, while playing nice, isn't some long-term, mainstay of the defense potentially. So Stanley Camper is going to be someone who is very much in the mix for a linebacker spot, and we'll see if he can break out and really do something for us and really solidify himself as our linebacker of the future. In the third round, the Raiders are selecting wide receiver Justin Perez out of Washington. And Perez was a player who had a skill set that I just really was intrigued by. He can do a bit of everything. I think he, is really able to make some acrobatic catches and can go up and get that football despite being 5'11". And obviously DeAndre Hopkins isn't on this team forever. I don't know if he's going to last more than a year or two. And it's nice to have a number 4 receiver. We traded Trey Tucker away, and it's nice to have a fourth guy that we can really count on in certain situations. So Perez is going to see some playing time early as our number 4, and we'll see if he can, earn more time beyond that. Now, how about we go 4th round, running back Alex Peralta out of Boise State. And Peralta is going to be someone who could see some playing time early on. We took Alex Venable last year late in the draft, and he's seen very minimal snaps, but that's because we had a cluster of backup running backs. But we weren't really able to address backup running back as well as we like to, but Josh Jacobs is kind of a bell cow guy, so we don't need a lot in the backup department. But obviously if Jacobs gets hurt, we're gonna be pretty thin. So barring, injury, we shouldn't be seeing a whole lot of him, but don't be surprised if he gets in there a couple times and gets a couple of carries. And we have our final draft story player, as one usually doesn't go this late, but when he's a running back fullback hybrid like running back Jesse Duke is, he will go that far down. And I covered Jesse Duke in length earlier in the season. Really fun player, can play fullback, running back, tight end, a little bit of receiver, a little bit of everything. He can do it all, and for a fullback is what he's going to be labeled as, but we will see how much he gets, playing time. I think he's a really fun and interesting player. If we didn't already have Josh Moss, who's a similar kind of guy, we would have probably taken him with our 4th round pick, but I wasn't really going to go double dip and go with Josh Moss and Jesse Duke, so it's going to be a fun pickup for the Cardinals, who are building a really interesting team. And the final pick I will be showcasing is our 7th round pick, as in rounds 5 and 6, we just kind of took a backup offensive lineman. Nothing really interesting to show, but in round 7, I wanted to dive into another wide receiver, and that was Jarius Tate out of Purdue, who looks really interesting to me as a deep threat player. And he did not get a whole lot of opportunities in college, but he will make the roster as our 5th string receiver, and we'll see if we get to see him in any sort of action at all. But I thought he was a really fun player to kind of note because he's not that bad for a 7th round pick, at least I should say. And that will do it for the draft. That will do it for the off-season. A really fun offseason. We get DeAndre Hopkins, we get Garrett Bowles, we get Eric Armstead, Odigizua, J.C. Horn, Jeremy Chin, Ellis Travis. We get a whole bunch of fun players. This team, I think, got a lot better, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We led a top 10 offense last year, and we only got a little bit better on offense. And I said we'd be taking on the Jaguars next season. Well, it turns out we'll be taking them on week 1, as in the next episode, season 3 will kick off as we travel back to Jacksonville and try to exorcise some of those demons that happened last year, as Trevor Lawrence threw for over 500 yards on our defense, and Evan Ingram caught about 20 balls on the defense, and it's going to be a massive test for us, just mentally and physically, for what they did to us last year. and we're going to really see the growth and transformation of this defense. Are we ready to really step in here, play some good defense against an elite quarterback? We will see. I will see you all in the next episode. Season 3 kicks off.